What's going on, everybody? Andrew Thompson here of the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel. We have something a little different here on the channel today. With me today is renowned magician, gold medal winner in the Sarasota, Florida International Circus Festival, and a theatrical makeup artist, Brian LaPalme. Brian, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Nice to be with you.
I'm glad to have you here. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. But before we get into how I came about contacting you, Brian, and of course what we're going to be talking about today, the subject of what we're going to be talking about. Tell me a little bit more about your background and what led you to your profession.
Well, from 1976 to 2018, when I retired, I had a 42-year career on the road with uh, 8 months out of every year. I worked with circuses as the ringmaster and magician. I also did a fire eating act. And 4 months out of every year, I was a theatrical makeup artist doing shows like The Wizard of Oz, Cats, Phantom of the Opera, and so on. So I retired in 2018 after 42 years in show business and got to meet a lot of wonderful people in those 42 years and traveled all over the United States and Canada and had a great time.
Yeah, congratulations on your retirement, man. Late congratulations, of course. But
Oh, you know what, Andrew, that's not, most people, I think you would tell them congratulations because they retired from a job they hated. But,
I mean that's true.
I
That's
loved
true.
my job for 42 years. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. So I'm being funny now saying you don't need to congratulate me, but retirement now is nothing like being on the road. This is
Yeah.
retirement. It's boring and so on. And I got off the road because my heart doctor said, this is stressful. You work 7 days a week. On the weekend, we do six packs, which is three shows on Saturday, three on Sunday. I'm in there like 13 or 14 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday. And he said, at your age, and I'm almost 65 now, and he said, at your age, it's too much. It's time for you to give up show business. But I loved it, and I'm sad that I gave it up, but I had to for my health. But I just loved being on the road. And again, I worked 7 days a week in show business, but loved it. Working with people who loved what they're doing, and in the real world, people can't wait till it's 5 o'clock, and they look forward to the weekend, and because their job is just a job. It's just
Yeah.
something to pay the bill. But my 42 years in show business was an adventure. It was exciting. It was creative. It was, just it was incredible.
What would you say are some of your favorite memories from being on the road, whether it be a road story, a stop you made, a city you were in? What are some of your fondest memories that you can recall just off the top of your head from being on the road out of your 30 plus years being a part of the circus?
Yeah, yeah. 42 years,
Yeah.
1976 to 2018. I got to play in little cities all across America and Canada and big cities. So performing in New York City with the Big Apple Circus in 1994 in the winter was incredible to be, at Christmas time and in Lincoln Center in 1994. That was amazing. Being performing in the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, in 2005 was incredible. So I just have 42 years of incredible memories and meeting people and you know and the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat thing, even though it was only that little adventure was only 2 days long,
Yeah.
but that was incredible too. So in 42 years I've met and worked with amazing people, and in retirement now, most people just love their retirement. Retirement for me is boring. Being on the road every day and traveling and seeing all over this great country of ours and Canada too, constantly moving and doing shows in big cities. That was amazing. And now it's a much slower pace of life.
Now that you worded it like that, I can definitely see why you responded the way you did when I mentioned the congratulations on your retirement. And like
And I was being funny. I wasn't being
oh
disrespectful.
no, no,
I
I
was
know,
being
I know,
funny because
I know.
to most people you would say, "Hey, congratulations, you made it. You're retired. You don't have to go to work anymore." But for me, it's like, "Okay, Brian, your career in show business is over. like the saddest day in my life. That day in November in 2018 when I was did the ringmaster, uh, did the shows and everything as ringmaster, and it was done, and it was over, and never have I put on my ringmaster coat again, and because Ringling Brothers closed in 2017, I ended my career working for George Carden, who produces the largest circus in America. So
Mm.
for 2017 and 2018, I worked with the biggest circus in the United States. It was amazing. We had elephants and tigers and the Walendas and Chachi Valencia, the human cannonball, and on and on and on. A giant cast of people in the show, and just absolutely incredible. So, yeah, driving home to Florida, knowing that it was over, that I would never enter the circus ring again, that I would never be part of that amazing business. Now, it was sad, and yet, for my own mental health, I know I can't. I just have to look forward to what life has in store for me, and also to know that I had, 42 incredible years. So again, most people, they just do a job to earn money to pay their bills. I had an amazing, career, and so I do have all those memories to look back at, and that's a good thing too.
Right, and I was saying earlier, like I know that has to be like a really a hard transition to sort of go through, a really difficult or testing transition to go through, from having just the years of thrill and excitement and seeing all these different cities, and then now you're kind of at sort of like a restart point, and trying to find the next thing. So I definitely see where you coming from when you mention that.
Yes, and you know what? And I appreciate that. That you do see that. When you're the ringmaster, the spotlight is on you all the time. And I don't just mean, in the 2.5 hour show, but with the circus, it's the ringmaster who does all those interviews. So for 42 years, I was everywhere doing television interviews,
Mm.
and before cell phones, I would go into the radio studios and do the radio interviews, and then once cell phones came around, I would call in my radio interviews. But newspaper, magazines, television, I was always in the spotlight because I was the ringmaster of the circus, and he's the guy that tells everyone about the show. So yeah, it was really cool to be in the spotlight 42 years, and now the they turn the spotlight off now. So it is kind of cool to be back in the spotlight for a few minutes with you.
No, I think that's cool what you just mentioned. I did not know that the ringmaster was like sort of like the PR person, so to speak, or more like a main representative of what you guys present. Like I think that's a really cool aspect of the job that I don't really think many
Well,
people know about.
like jugglers, when someone is juggling, they don't usually talk. They don't talk when they juggle in a variety show or a circus. The music comes on and they juggle. The tiger trainer, he's not talking in that ring. He's working with his tigers and so on. So, but it's the ringmaster who's his job is to talk. So he's, and who knows a circus better? Who knows a show better than the ringmaster? Because I'm out there the entire 2.5 hours. I know every act frontwards and backwards. I see it, 2 times a day and 3 times Saturday and Sunday. So normally a circus performer, they go out and do their 7-minute act, and they go back to their dressing room or their trailer until it's time for them to come out again to do their second act
Mm.
or whatever. But the ringmaster is there the entire time, and he's the one that knows the show. So yes, it's the ringmaster who did all those interviews, and the TV to publicize the circus coming to town and so on. And I just I loved it, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm the only ringmaster ever to compete in the Sarasota Circus Festival
Mhm.
that ever won 2 gold medals. So no one can ever take that away from me. Some ringmasters, they just kind of talk, and it's not about just saying, and now here come the elephants. No, it's about putting excitement in it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Shrine Circus Elephant. So and the ringmaster not only makes the circus exciting for the audience, he's making the ringmaster and his announcements. he's making the show exciting every day. Even though he's seen it hundreds of times, he's making the show exciting for the audience, but he's also making the show exciting for the performers. When I'm introducing them with excitement in my voice, even though they've done their act for, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, every time they go out there, they're excited because the ringmaster is, and now presenting sensational juggling artistry in all three rings, and then you name the performers, and they're excited to go out there. So I always saw my job as the ringmaster as being a cheerleader, a cheerleader for the circus who's making the show exciting for the audience and making the show exciting for the performers as well.
Brian, did you get personally, and from what you could see from the people that you were on the road with and performing with, do you think you guys got more fulfillment out of getting the oohs and ahs from the adults that were in attendance? Maybe if they not for everybody that was there, but I'm pretty sure that I would say a vast majority of the people who were there with their children and stuff. Do you feel like there was like a greater sense of fulfillment to get like the oohs and ahs out of them and see them be surprised and shocked?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Unless you are emotionally, dead, when you go to an incredible show like that, you are amazed. You're amazed at Chachi Valencia as he flies, the length of a football field as the human cannonball. And you're amazed with all those giant circus elephants coming out there and performing. And then, the showgirls up in the air performing aerial ballet, and it's just beautiful. So, and the clowns, make you laugh. And so, yes, I mean, absolutely incredible. And yet, on a sad note, my last 2 years with the circus, playing big places like Chicago and big cities like that, Dallas, Texas, and so on. When I was not out in the ring announcing, I would be off to the side while the performers were performing, and I would look up into the seats, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people would be, at the Sears Center in Chicago, and I'd look up there and see, families loving the circus, but I'd see like teenage girls and boys, with their families, and they'd be looking at their electronic devices.
Hmm.
I mean, just so strange. The little kids would be thrilled with the circus. The adults, the mom and dad would be amazed, and yet you're looking at young teenagers, and they're just looking at their phones.
Mm. Like so I do find what you do very very interesting. It's intriguing to like hear someone that's like actually in it and like in the thick of it, was in the thick of it, and was able to have so many different experiences. Like what would you say is probably the biggest misconception that others have of those who are involved in the inner workings of the circus?
You know, uh, well, sometimes you just hear people say, "Oh, circus people, it must be, it must just be easy." They just see the performance, so
Right.
they see the big motorhomes out back, and they see a 7 minute performance that a circus performer is doing, and they think, "Oh man, that is so easy. All that money they make, and it's so easy. They're only out there like 7 minutes," and yet that's not true. They didn't just consider that. We just drove 250 miles overnight, to be in the town the next day to do a show.
Mm.
And again, that in show business, professional show business, you work 7 days a week, whereas most people who have jobs, they work 5 days a week. Some people even have their weekends off, but on the weekends, that's when we would do 3 shows a day. So again, 12 or 14 hours was a day for me. And yet, even though working, 8 months, 7 days a week, sometimes 12 hours a day on the weekend, did I love it? Absolutely, I loved it. I mean, because you're working with people who are passionate about their jobs, whereas, in the real world, most people, you're looking around at people who work with you, and they're just as anxious for their shift to end as you are. And yet, with the circus, these are people that, no one would sign up to work in a circus if they didn't love it. I mean, so no one's going to say, "Oh yeah, I want to work 7 days a week, and I want to work, all those hours, and I want to drive all night long and so on." No one would do that if they were not absolutely passionate about their act and about their performing in a show. So that's what was for me missing in the real world whenever I would have to do like a little part-time job or something. And when I retired, I've done some part-time jobs just to get out of the house, and there is no passion from people in the real world, when you're working a job out in the real world. But with the
Yeah.
circus, it's there's passion. People are excited, and it's showtime, and the whistle blows, and the band plays, and the lights come on, and again, you're in Chicago, and 12 union spotlight operators. When I blow my whistle out in the center ring, they light you up, and ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I mean, that is exciting, and it's night after night. So that's what I miss the most, being retired now. It's not that sense of adventure and, oh, next week we're going to be in Hollywood, and in 2 weeks we're going to be in, Boston, Massachusetts, and then we're going to be in, Portland, Oregon. And so you're constantly traveling, you're in new cities all the time. And, there's that sense of adventure and excitement that, is not part of my life now that I'm retired.
What would you say that the production staff and production crew are the unsung heroes of the circus?
Yes, absolutely. That, and it was always my pleasure when you're on a new show, and sometimes you're on a new show, a new circus every year. Sometimes I'd be on, a show for 3 years or 5 years. But I would always as the ringmaster, I would always get to know everyone, not just the performers, but all the crew and everything. It was my pleasure to be friends, with everyone. And yes, the crew, from the guys on the floor setting up and tearing down the whole circus to the sound guys and the lighting technicians. Yeah, they certainly are the unsung heroes of the circus. And I just loved those guys, and they knew that I loved them. I cared about them, and there's like a team spirit. It's not like you think, oh, there's the circus performers and they don't have anything to do with the crew. That's not true. Whenever
Right.
that we would have a party on the road, someone's birthday, or we were celebrating, everyone celebrates together. So I think I missed part of that too, because we were all a family. If you were on the side of the road with your travel trailer, everyone's going to either call you. In the old days, in the 80s and 90s, we all had CBs, and they'd call you on the CB, and then cell phones came in. And if you're on the side of the road, every circus performer, every truck who's going by you on the highway is going to call you and say, are you okay? Is there anything we can do for you? So we played together, we lived together. It was like just a big giant family, on little shows with maybe 40 people, and then on big shows with like 140 people. You're all part of the same family, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and even what we're going to be talking about in a little bit, so sort of related to professional wrestling. Like I think the production people in like the people who work in the truck, the people who set up the lights and the cameras and stuff, I feel like they are very much the unsung heroes in the same way in professional wrestling, because they are like I would say a massive part of the reason why some of the shows have this like just top notch quality and camera shots and making sure everything is swift and smooth. And I'm pretty sure it's the same way in the circus. Like they and most of the time, like from those people that do work in that area of production, they never really are the ones to like jump out there and be like, hey, I did this. They kind of just take their credit in silence, and just like and they sort of take their credit within the fulfillment of seeing the shows go on smoothly. Like that's like their credit right there. So yeah, there's a lot of production people out there, man, who have in so many different fields, not even just wrestling, not even the circus, that have done just some amazing things, and really don't really aren't like I guess eager to jump out there and say, hey, I did this. They kind of just proud of the work that they did, and move forward. But yeah, I think that's a very nice assessment that you just made, as far as the people who have helped you and helped the circus and helped your crew, helped you guys just get along over the years. And I think it's a nice gesture to always you know show love to those people.
Well, the cool thing for me is that, again, 8 months out of every year for 42 years, as the ringmaster, magician, and the fire performer when I did my fire act, you're out in front of the audience. But 4 months out of every year as a theatrical makeup artist, I'm part of the crew on, on a show. Again, like The Wizard of Oz or Phantom of the Opera. I'm the makeup artist making up the stars. So I'm part of the crew. And you just, when you're a performer and you're the ringmaster, you're like the star of the circus. And then in your other job, you're, part of the crew in a show. It's good because you realize how important the crew is
Yeah.
too. So that was a good thing for me all those years as a theatrical makeup artist, being part of the crew, and then the other part of the year being the ringmaster, the face of the circus. I got to see both sides of the coin, so to speak. That there's the performers out there, and then there's the crew. And to me, everyone is just as important as the other. To me, there was never any stars. Everyone who worked with the circus or with a Broadway show, everyone is a star. Whether the audience sees you or not, whether you're a crew or an actor, everyone who's making the show happen is a star.
Now, is there still like very much still like an active scene today? Because I know the pandemic has impacted a lot of businesses. I know you guys are well, that's another question I wanted to ask. But what is it, have you been able to sort of keep tabs on the scene today and like over the past several years since you retired? And how do you think things have been as far as you can tell in your assessment, throughout the pandemic?
Yes, and the pandemic, just even Broadway, even the shows on Broadway. In fact, I think I read somewhere that the Christmas show, at the Radio City Music Hall, the Rockettes and everything. I think they were performing, recently, and then for Christmas they had to cancel their shows because of the pandemic again, and the circus, had to stop, and all my friends who are circus performers, you know, no work. So
Mm.
yeah, very sad. I think everything might be slowly starting to open up again. I hope, but when you're a mother and a father and you have children and you're circus performers, and now there's all the circuses are canceled,
Yeah.
you know it's got to be very rough. And a lot of my friends who are circus performers, they had their CDL license, so a lot of them were able to start driving trucks when the circus closed because of the pandemic, so they were able to keep food on the table. But even actors on Broadway, Broadway was shut down. I think Broadway is slowly opening again, but very, very rough on the entertainment sector. Very hard when all the shows had to close. Very sad. My heart went out to all of them.
Yeah, and I was gonna mention earlier, like as far as like the collective group of circus performers, you guys are like unionized, right? Like I think you guys are under the, what was it, the American Guild of Artists, that like that's like a union all of you are under, right?
You know what? For my 42-year career, I was never in a union, even as a makeup artist
Mm.
and as a ringmaster. Never any kind of union. Never saw any unions.
Okay, that was that interesting because I had
So how about that? Is that cool?
oh
You
yeah.
asked me a question, and no, no, none of the performers, none of the me as a ringmaster never had to be in a union. As a makeup artist, never had to be in a union.
Oh, that's
No,
cool.
so not with us. Yeah, and I don't know about other, I don't know about wrestling, and I don't know if all those people
Oh
are
no
in
no,
unions. I don't
they
know.
not.
I think
No, they not.
all right, but my expertise was for 42 years was as a circus ringmaster and performer and a makeup artist. And no, in either of those businesses, no one ever approached me about being in a union.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. To get that clarified, because I made the assumption that it would have been like under the creative artists guild, or maybe the artist guild, but I think that's cool that you guys were able to
I
make things. Uh,
I heard about I heard about um, a union called AGVA, AGVA. I heard about that. Maybe read about it, or I don't even know if it's still around. And AGVA was AGVA, the American Guild of Variety Artists. So that would be, that would be magicians. A variety artist is a juggler, a magician, like that. So I don't know if they're not around anymore, but no, I never had to be in a union to do any of the, jobs I did for 42 years,
Okay.
and never knew anyone on any show that I was on that had to be in a union.
For sure, for sure. But so sort of getting into the nitty gritty of what we came to talk about today, outside of your 40 years in the circus, I came across for those of you who wonder how I came across Brian, or I ended up reaching out to Brian. I came across and heard his name while I was listening to an interview with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and he was on the Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw show. Ricky Steamboat, a marquee name in the history of pro wrestling, man. He did good business in the territory days for like Jim Crockett and Jack Tunney up in Canada. He was in WCW, WWE. He's been in All Japan. George Tragos, Luthez Hall of Famer. Ricky has literally accomplished at all the professional wrestling. But he had told the story of when Vince McMahon wanted him to learn how to blow fire. In relation to his the Dragon nickname, of course, and then Ricky mentioned the name Brian LaPalme, and that like he started telling this whole story, and I don't know what happened, but the name just caught my ear, and I was like, I gotta try to find this Brian LaPalme gentleman so I can talk to him. And Brian LaPalme, of course,
Well, Andrew,
the you,
you must be part detective, because you did find me. You're amazing.
yeah, man, I definitely had to reach out because I just found the story so interesting. But yeah, but Brian LaPalme, who I'm speaking to right now, was the instructor for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to teach him how to do the fire breathing the fire breathing properly. Brian had been doing this for many years at this point. A true veteran. Ricky even said that himself. Brian was a veteran at it. And Ricky said that initially they tried to get someone from the Barnum and Bailey circus, but that individual did not want to share his secret. So WWE, WWF at the time came across Brian, found him, and brought him in to help out Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Brian, just from
Andrew, do you want to know how they found me?
yeah, I was just about to ask you that. Like I was literally about to ask you that. How did that opportunity come about from your end?
All right. Well, so what I heard back then, and how many years ago was that? That was
One.
1991,
Yep.
and now we're almost in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So how many years was that? A long time ago. So what I had heard, through Ricky and Bruce Prichard, was
Yep.
that they reached out to a lot of people to find someone who would be willing to teach, and they found no one. No one, that no one was willing to teach him how to do what we call the volcano. And the volcano is when you blow the fire out of your mouth, and I would do like in a circus tent in the 1980s and 90s, or a big arena. I would do like 25 feet of fire right up to the roof of the tent, or, right up in a coliseum, in an arena, 25 feet of fire. So pretty amazing. So they couldn't find anyone. Now, this was 1991, and it was the WWF, the
Yeah.
World Wrestling Federation, and I think they're still in the same place in Connecticut. I'm assuming, you can correct me, but aren't they in Stamford, Connecticut?
Yes, they are.
All right. So do you know what is in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Andrew?
Uh, nah, I do not know their
The
headquarters is
Bar-
in
the
Stanford.
Barnum the, the Barnum Museum is in
There you go.
Bridgeport, Connecticut. Pete Barnum. So evidently, after being told no, 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 no by all these people, someone in the WWF management said, "Well, right here in Connecticut, we have is the Barnum Museum in Bridgeport, Connecticut." So they reached out to the curator of the Barnum Museum, who was Robert Pelton, Bob Pelton, and they said, "Do you know a fire eater that could teach one of our wrestlers how to do the volcano?" And Bob Pelton was also a circus fan. That's why he was the curator of the Barnum Museum, because he loved the circus. So when in the 80s, when I was with Roberts Brothers Circus, and then the early 90s, when I was with Alan C. Hill's Great American Circus, we always played Connecticut. So Bob Pelton, knew me, and knew that Brian LaPalme was the fire eater. So when they called him and said, "Do you know anyone?" One name. I was the only one who was doing a fire eating act in the volcano at that time. So he said, "Yes, you want Brian LaPalme." And not only did he say, "You want Brian LaPalme," he said, and Brian LaPalme is working for the circus producer Alan C. Hill, and his suite of offices is in Sarasota, Florida. And here's the number for Alan C. Hill's Great American Circus. So Bob gave them all that information, and then I got a call from a guy named Bruce Prichard, and he said, "Could you do this?" And I said, "I'm not a wrestling guy. I don't know who Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is, but if he's intelligent and if he's willing to listen to me, because blowing fire, fire is real. It's not plastic. It's fire. You can get burned. And in my career, I was burned badly one time. So this is real." And I said, not only must he be very intelligent, but he must also, not be I don't know the words I use. He must not be a star who thinks he knows it all. He must, everything I tell him, take a deep breath now, tilt your head back now. Everything I tell him, he must do, no hesitation. And he said, "Oh no, this guy will commit, to doing this, and he'll be excellent. He'll be a great student." And I said, "Okay." And I remember there was no negotiating on price. I said, "This is the amount of money I need." And he said, "Okay." And he said, "We'll fly, myself, Bruce Prichard, and Ricky will fly out to West Palm Beach, Florida. And that's where the circus, we were going to be playing a 2-day stand in West Palm Beach." And he said, "You can do this in 2 days." I said, "If the guy is any good and will listen to me and, practice, yes, I can certainly teach him in 2 days. So you'll give me this amount of money, and at the end of the 2 days, he will be able to blow fire." And I said, "Now I don't need to teach him how to eat fire. You just want him to blow fire, to do a volcano. Yes, that's all we need him to do. He doesn't need to put a torch in his mouth. He just needs to be able to blow a volcano." And I said, "Yes, absolutely." So that's how that happened.
Yeah, so around this time, this was Ricky's second stint with the WWF, I believe, because I know he joined in the mid 1980s, and then he went back outside of the company, and then he came back in '91, and that's when they started billing him as the Dragon, and doing all these vignettes and stuff like that, and that's when he was really playing into the Dragon character. So I think that's how that whole situation came about. But like you mentioned it a little bit. Like, did you know? I know you said you weren't like a wrestling guy, but were you like sort of familiar with the sport of pro wrestling? Like, did you know some of the talents in there, or was wrestling just like
Yeah,
a thing you didn't?
I yes, I saw some of it, and I remembered that Bruce Prichard played a character.
Yeah, brother love.
All right, there you go. So yeah, I some people are circus fans. They know every performer by name. Some people are wrestling fans. They can quote, all facts. They know everything about their wrestling. I was not what you would call then a wrestling fan. I was working 7 days a week. Who had time to watch wrestling? You were driving every day to the next town and then doing shows,
Yeah.
under the tent. So who had time to do that? I didn't. But every once in a while, I would see some stuff on television. So yes, and I just put back on my Facebook page, some of those pictures of me teaching Ricky, and I also put on back then in the 90s we had something called Circus Report that came out once a week, and that's how circus people, stayed in touch with each other. You also looked for jobs through Circus Report. There is no Circus Report anymore, but I remember taking a full page ad out in Circus Report, and it said, "Thank you, Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard of the World Wrestling Federation for recently engaging my services to teach Ricky the Dragon Steamboat the ancient art of fire eating." And then I said, "For his triumphant return to the WWF." So he must have told me that he was there at one time and he'd been away and he was coming back.
Yeah.
So thank you to Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for his triumphant return to the WWF. I wrote, "Ricky, it was a pleasure working with you." And then special thanks to Alan C. Hill, who is the producer I worked for, and Bob Pelton, who is the curator of the Barnum Museum. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it went by really quick. It was only 2 days. But just if you're talking to someone for 10 minutes, you can get a good inclination of the kind of person they are. And I remember, even though I only spent 2 days with Ricky, he was a really nice guy, a really nice guy. And I remember asking him some, just as he was asking me questions about what is it like being on the road with the circus and doing your job, and I would ask him questions, and I remember it was a point of pride with him, and I remember this from all those years ago, 1991, that he told me then in 1991 that he was never a bad guy in wrestling.
Yeah.
He said that when a wrestler loses their popularity, they change. They go from good guy to bad guy, or vice versa. I remember it was a point of pride with him when he said, I was never a bad guy. I was always the good guy. I was always popular. My popularity did not wane. And then he owned way back then, he owned a gym in Charlotte, North Carolina, called Steamboat's Gym. And I remember asking about his physique and saying, how do you keep looking so good when you're on the road? You're not cooking your meals. You're in a hotel or eating in restaurants. How do you do that? I asked him, and I remember him telling me, well, he said I ate a lot of. I'd order my eggs hard boiled. I remember him telling me, and this must have impressed me because I still remember it. And this was back in 1991. He said I order my eggs hard boiled, and I only eat the whites, and I just separate them and eat the whites. And he said I eat a lot of tuna and water, and I eat a lot of salad. And I asked him, I said, now, do you ever have a cheat day? And he said, yes. I have a cheat day once in a while. And I said, what do you cheat with? And he said, I might have a piece of pizza, once in a great while. So I remember his commitment to bodybuilding and looking as good as he did. He had a strong commitment, and you could tell also that he loved, wrestling. And again, he had that really point of pride that his popularity was always up there. He never had to, change to being a bad guy in wrestling and so on. So just those 2 days with him, I remember that he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, Ricky was but they use the terms baby face and heel in professional wrestling. The baby face is of course the good guy, and the heel is the bad character. But yeah, Ricky throughout his whole career, he was always a baby face, never switched, not once. Was always, and he's off, like even wrestlers today. You often hear them mention when speaking about some of the best baby faces that ever come through the business. Ricky Steamboat is always in that conversation, always mentioned, because he literally stuck through the whole way. Like even in today's landscape, you'll have people who are just natural white meat traditional baby face good guys, or just talents in general, and they'll switch and then they'll come back and then they'll switch and then they'll come back. But with Ricky, he was all the way through pure baby face, no matter what territory, no matter what city, country, he was always a baby face. So I think that was a really cool thing. I was saying I'm glad that you are able to have those memories and those good experiences, because I mean that you mentioned that's that was your first time meeting them. So I think that was cool that you guys sort of left an impression on one another, that you both are able to remember each other from from way back then.
Absolutely. And I remember his wife, Bonnie, kept in touch with me for, a couple of years. She would write letters and I would write letters. And, after the 2 days I had in Florida with Ricky, I never saw him again. But Bonnie would come to the shows every year when would be around North Carolina, and she brought, her son, little Ricky. So this is back in 1991, 1992, 1993. So I did get to see her, once a year, and she'd bring her little boy with her, and she would write me, some letters, sometimes during the year.
That's
so
nice.
I got to stay in touch with Ricky through his lovely wife, Bonnie, and got to meet his son. Again, this is, in the early 90s. So, yeah, very nice people, the whole family, very, very nice. And again, Ricky was just wonderful to work with, very bright, and whatever I would tell him to do, he did it. And he, at the end of those 2 days, he was blowing, amazing fire volcanoes. So, that you can't teach someone that won't learn or someone that has an attitude. So he was someone who did want to learn, and he had no attitude.
Mm.
Even though he was a wrestling star, he showed me no attitude. When I asked him to do something, he did it, and because he did, he learned, something that might take me, a few weeks to teach someone else. He was able to learn that dangerous stunt in 2 days.
Mm. Yeah, that's impressive. And like you mentioned, Ricky was like even before he went to the WWF, Ricky was a big name. Like I mentioned earlier, in the territories, like him and his partner, Jay Youngblood, they would often team up, and I remember him telling a story about how they would often, when they would be the headliners for events up in Canada, they would always sell these shows out, the different parts of the U.S. They would be brought in as a duo. Yeah, so yeah, Ricky had a very established name at that point. Of course, it wasn't at the level that it was when, I mean, because he already had a run in the WWF prior to that 1991 comeback. But I think him, having a level head, for somebody that had the popularity that he had, and it was about to come into some more popularity as well, being back in the WWF. I think that says a lot about him as an individual.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I've worked with a lot of wonderful people, and Ricky is right up there. He was just a wonderful guy, and to work with, and it was a real pleasure. So I remember the whole Ricky the Dragon Steamboat fire teaching experience as a very pleasurable one, because he was just such a nice guy.
Mm. So by Ricky's recount of the fire breathing, fire eating exercise, slash like teaching lesson. He recalled it like with you. So he said that you had like you used to use kerosene, and that's what you used to like incite the flame, for lack of better terms. And is that like a common fluid that would you say that most people use, or would you say that was something that you just preferred?
You know, because there's probably a lot of people out there listening, to this, or will be listening. I have vivid memories of, like, in the 1970s when the rock band Kiss and Gene Simmons would do his fire volcanoes, and I remember that some kid, I forgot what state, it might have been Connecticut, my state. Some kid went out in the backyard and tried to do it,
Oh
and
boy.
had third-degree burns all over his body. So we do use a mixture of a couple of different things, and I'd rather, it's not that it's a secret. I mean, I'm not in the business anymore, but it's just that I don't want some kid to go out there and go,
Yeah.
oh, that's what they use, and because that kid is not trained. I mean, it's one thing, if you have a teacher, and I was like, Ricky's guardian angel for 2 days, right there saying, you need to do this. And if he didn't have his head back enough, or he wasn't taking enough air in his lungs, it was me saying, wait, you need to tip your head back more, or put more air in your lungs. I was watching out for him every second that I taught him. And I remember that Gene Simmons Kiss thing, when that kid in the 70s, oh, that's what they use. And he went out there and got the stuff and set himself on fire,
Mm.
because he did not have a teacher. So as far as the mixture of things that we used, I'd rather not get into that, and because I don't want to be responsible for anyone trying and go, oh, I'm sure I could do it, I don't need a teacher, and then they go out there and they set themselves on fire.
Right.
Because you do need a teacher. And if Vince McMahon would pay the money he paid me way back then for 2 days, it just proves you do need a teacher. And yet now with YouTube, people, oh, I can just go on YouTube and see how to do it. No, you can't.
Mm.
If you're going to do something dangerous, you need someone right there with you, not on a TV screen, someone right there with you to watch your back and teach you. So it is, the fire volcano is extremely dangerous.
Mm.
And again, I was very impressed with Ricky, because he was an excellent student. He was committed to doing what he needed to do. And in 2 days, he learned that amazing volcano, and he did it. And he was incredibly talented at doing it.
So Ricky remembered you telling him specifically that when someone is doing this when they're outside, always make sure to check the direction that the flame is going in, so you can know where the wind is coming from. And he said you may sort of emphasize that and stress that for future references for him when you're not around him, as he would go on in his career to do this a multitude of times. And you know, he said he just like emphasized that you made sure to let him know, like, make sure to check if you're ever in an outside venue or outdoor venue, make sure to check the direction that the flames are going, so you can adjust and you can realize the situation was going on and which way the wind is going in, and yeah, but before you blow the fluid into the flame. And he mentioned that when you were showing him this, and like you were like demonstrating, like showing him like which way the wind is going and stuff like that, he said that you blew the fluid, and then the wind like lit, like he said it was like a split second or like a couple second thing, like you spit the fluid out and then the wind immediately shifted and then it blew back into you, like like I'm pretty sure.
And I did that. Yes, and I did that on purpose. I wanted to see. I wanted him, and I was able to, because you want the wind coming from behind your back, blowing the fire away from you. And yet the wind can come up quickly and turn, and it can blow that 30-foot cloud of fire in your face. So I made him a torch, and I remember it was a point of pride when I saw him on TV doing the fire volcano, and they did in the wrestling magazine, they did a photo shoot, and he had that torch that I made him. And that was like, hey, that's the torch I made Ricky. Anyways, to light that torch, look at the flame, and then adjust your stance. So you want the wind at, behind you, blowing the fire out of your mouth, not coming back, blowing the fire in. And I showed him, and this is what can happen to you, Ricky, if you do it wrong. So I blew the fire, and I turned quickly so that the wind was blowing it back at me, and for a split second, it came back at me. And yet, because I'd been doing it already, since 1976, and this was 1991, I was able to make a point, show him how the wind can blow the fire at you, and then I quickly adjusted my position so that the wind blew it away from me again. But he got the point that the wind is your enemy, and that giant cloud of fire, it's real fire, and it can be all over your body, within seconds or a split second. So yes, I'm glad that he remembered that even though it was only 2 days, I took a great deal of time and patience with him, teaching him everything he would know to be able to do that. And again, that's why the people who say, "Oh, I don't need to pay someone to learn how to do that. I can just watch them learn on YouTube." Wrong. This is dangerous. You do need a teacher, and it's someone who's going to watch your back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But even though you were able to, you said you were able to adjust quickly. I'm pretty sure that's like in any situation, that's a scary thing. 'Cause like you said, that's legit fire. That's real fire. That's things that can cause a variation, a different degree type of burns. Like I'm pretty sure your fight or flight instincts like kick in immediately when you're in a situation like that, where you come even like remotely close to any type of fire.
Absolutely. And just working with, daredevils for 42 years, the human cannonball and high wire performers or walking a wire, these are all professionals. And you have little, you have like the hair on the back of your neck that stands up as soon as something might be, not right. And you know how to correct it. And if you don't correct it, you could be in the hospital. So absolutely. And I remember making a point of showing Ricky, because again, I was brand new. We'd only been working, less than an hour, and it's like, and I wanted him to understand that everything I said was real, and so okay, we're gonna step out of the tent. We're gonna be outdoors, and and you need to have the wind at your back, and this is what can happen if you don't pay attention. And then I quickly turned. The wind blew the fire back at me. And as it was coming at me quick, I turned again so it would blow away. But I walked away with no burns that day. But I know that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Ricky Blood, was very, very, very impressed with, the way I could handle the fire. And then he realized, oh my gosh, this is real. And, and how many times, in my career did I hear people say, oh, well, that's fake fire. Well, there is no such thing as fake fire. And then you'd hear people say, oh, well, I think they put something in their mouth or around their mouth, that firefighters, firemen use so that they don't get burnt. Well, there is nothing like that. There is nothing. It's just you and your skill that, keeps you from being in the hospital and keeps you from being burned. And that's why I'm so, that's why I tell people you cannot learn this from a YouTube video. You need to, you need a teacher who's going to be there to tell you every little thing, because this is real. This is fire. This is dangerous.
And at this point, you were you had to be you were like a decade in, right, into the circus at this point.
Well, I started in '76, and this was
Yeah,
1999.
right.
So it's my second decade.
Second decade,
Yes.
right. So, like I actually wanted to read you a quote because from Ricky directly about this situation, because Ricky seems to remember like you having like serious like burns at like after this situation. I just wanted to read you his quote, only a portion of it. It's like a long thing, but it was just like the build up to it. So I'm gonna just read you the part. And I quote, he says, so he fills up his mouth with kerosene, and just as he takes that torch and he gets ready to blow it, the wind shifted and the wind was blowing in his face. So he blew, the kerosene went into his face, and now I see this guy running around the parking lot with his face on fire. And I looked at Prichard and I said, now Brian LaPalme told me that he's been doing this circus act for 10 years. I said, you see that 10-year veteran running around with his face on fire? I said, you call Vince up right now and tell him I ain't doing it. I'm not doing this. And so Brian, he came back and his face was rosy red, and he said, no, everything's fine. It's just like a real bad sunburn. It's just superficial, real bad sunburn. And he said, I want to teach you. So Ricky seems to like had this like recollection of you having like real bad sunburn from it. Like what like I know you just mentioned that there wasn't any bad burns. Like what was it, just like maybe like he mentioned like a rosy red type thing that came out of that situation?
You know what? Ricky had to do interviews, in his life because he was a performer, wrestler and performer. So that interview that you read, that sounds like a fun interview, and that sounds like, what you would put in a movie. Oh my gosh, and this guy who's been doing this for 20 years, all of a sudden he burned up, and I turned to Bruce and said, oh no, you call Vince, this guy's been doing this forever. But I have no recollection of that at all. I have no recollection of, again, I've been doing that since 1976, 2 times a day for 8 months, of every year. So, I showed him about the wind, and I said, this is what can happen if the wind is not at your back. I turned, the wind blew the fire towards me, and then I corrected my position. So no burns, no pink, and definitely Brian LaPalme was not running around in a parking lot with his face on fire.
Yeah.
In fact, the only time, I had one little accident in 2011 because someone gave me the wrong fluid, and I had an accident in a rehearsal, and that was the only time I'd ever, had any accident. And yet I can realize as a performer, you need to make your interviews sound fun. You need to make those interviews catch the audience's attention. So to be able to say, oh, well, we finally found a guy that's been doing this forever, and I get there and he sets himself on fire, so that sounds like a fun interview, but in fact, that never happened at all. Don't you love my Christian honesty?
Yeah, that was that's interesting right there. Ricky did this interview like a couple weeks ago, so this was like a new one. But
yeah, and of course, and it sounds, yes, and it sounds fun, and that's what, as someone, Ricky's been doing interviews forever because he's a performer.
Yeah.
So yes, and it does, and how you read it to me, it sounds exactly like what would be in a movie. Yes, and then I turned to Prichard and said, this guy's an expert. Well, you call Vince right now and tell him, no, I'm not. Yes, I mean, that sounds like if they were making the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat movie, that was it. And yet, my recollection is Brian LaPalme had been doing this since 1976, twice a day, 8 months out of the year, and this was now 1991. No, I was not running around a parking lot with my face on fire. No, I've never gotten a burn. until 2011, and I was showing about position with, and yet all of that, what you said, it sounds like what you would say in an interview, because we all exaggerate the truth a little to make our interviews, I guess, sound exciting. And that certainly sounded exciting, what you read to me.
Yeah, I figured like it was another portion in there where I kind of assumed that it was like just a tad bit of exaggeration in there, and like, cause he was like, he said like he
Yeah,
said your
and that's
eyebrows were
what I was.
gone, and he like your scalp was pushed back, and you had like these like bubble blisters on your face, like water bubble blisters, and you like pop one of them to try to scare him or something like that. So, so yeah,
Okay, and you know what? And all of that, and because I am a Christian, and honesty is so important. Just because I'm a Christian, that that is all
yeah,
exaggeration. It makes for good press. It makes for a fun interview for him to be able to say. And I saw this guy. He's supposed to be an expert, and he would you say he was running around the parking lot on fire, and I said no, I'm not doing it, and then I sucked it up and I said okay. So I mean that sounds like a fun interview, but in fact, none of that happened.
So there was only, like you said, it was only a 2 day session. Like I mean,
It was
what
it was only
two days worth of you being with Ricky and teaching them how to do it. Like how many sessions did you guys were you guys able to get in? Like was it just day one and day two, or did you guys meet up at multiple points throughout the 2 days?
no, it was those 2 days,
Okay.
because it was a 2 day stand with Great American Circus. We were going to be there 2 days. We would work in the morning and the afternoon, and then I had two shows at in the evening on each of those 2 days. So, I had a couple hours with him in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon on for 2 days. And that was it. And I was very, very intense and telling him everything. And okay, you need to listen to me, because we don't, I'm going to be gone. We have 2 days, and on the third day, this whole circus and all these travel trailers will be gone. I won't be here.
Right.
So, you need to listen to me, and you need to pay attention, and you need to take notes, and need to do everything you need to do, because we have only 2 days and probably no more than 5 hours a day, broken up into 2.5 hour sessions. So that was it. It was quick, it was intense, and there was no one running around a parking lot with blisters and their eyebrows off. It was just a very intense teacher, and a very eager student, and it was just okay. Now do this. Put your head back. Do this. Do this. Do this. Okay, how's that for you? Do this. Okay, we have like an hour left. You know, do this. Do this. Do this. All right, I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
And that was it.
So Brian, was that the last time that you ever did anything with WWE? Like, did you ever get a chance to go see any of their events, or even get the chance to see Ricky perform live and see him do the volcano?
No, no, I never did. That was the last time I saw him, because, again, from the beginning of this interview I did, I explained how, in love with show business I was for 42 years, and that when I would finish an 8-month circus tour,
Mm.
I would immediately go in to do like 3.5 to 4 months as a makeup artist with a show. So I was constantly, for 42 years, 1976 to 2018. I was always busy, in show business, and loved it. Now, if he comes to around here in Florida, well, I guess I could go and see him. But no, for all those years, again, working 7 days a week, you know, the whole year, 8 months with the circus and 4 months as a makeup artist, working every day. No, there was no time to go see anyone. There was no time to go to any other show except the show I was on.
Right, right. So lastly, Brian, like, do you have anything that you would like to plug or put out there? Maybe a project you're thinking about, an idea, or whatever it may be, and sort of let the people know where they can, if they choose to want to get in contact with you on social media or ask further about your career, where can people reach you at, if you know that's something you want people to have access to?
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook, and that's a great way, for people to reach me. That's how you reached out to me.
Yeah.
So Facebook is a great way. Yes, and and as a magician and as a makeup artist, and as when I was young, I did a lot of escape artistry and underwater escapes and the straitjacket escape and so on. So it's normal for me, like, to get a couple calls a month from someone saying, "Hey, will you teach me?" And the answer is yes, and it will cost you this amount of money. And so, if someone is giving away something, then it's not worth anything. So, if someone says, "Oh, I can teach you to be a fire eater and it won't cost you anything," well, I would run away from a person like that. But someone who's a professional and says, "I have 42 years, and hi, would you teach me how to apply a prosthetic appliance like for the Phantom of the Opera?" Yes, yes, I can show you how to do that. Brian, can you teach me how to, escape from a straitjacket? Yes, it will take you about 3 days and so many hours. And yes, come to Ocala, Florida. You'll get a hotel, and I'll teach you for 3 days, and this is how much it will cost. So, for people who say, "Oh, I can read a book or I can watch it on YouTube," you know, that is not the way a professional would do it. You would find a teacher. If you want to be a human volcano, then you find a teacher. If you want to be a human cannonball, you find a teacher.
Mm.
That's what you need to do. You need to find a teacher who is willing to teach you. And when you have that teacher, like me for Ricky all those years ago, I am with you and I am watching your every move. And when you're not doing something right, I'm going to tell you. And so, it's like you do have like a little guardian angel. You're paying for that guardian angel, but the guardian angel is right there and he's going to keep you safe. So that's what, I was able to teach Ricky in those 2 days, and he went on and performed it over and over and did an incredible job. He was a wonderful student. He was committed to doing it, and there you go. So I have those wonderful 2-day memories of working with Ricky. He was a real professional.
Yeah, and just lastly, something I wanted to mention, like as you were talking about, doing theatrical makeup. Like I remember when I was a teenager. I worked at a theme park, uh, at Six Flags America, and like
Wow.
whenever it was Halloween came around, they would hire theatrical makeup artists to come, like, paint some of the people's faces who were doing, like, going in the costume and stuff. I like those are some of the most talented individuals like I've ever seen, because like the way that they make some of these effects look so real, and like even with like skin hanging off and stuff like that, like I'm pretty sure that stuff takes so long to perfect, and take years of dedication and work to put into it. So yeah, I have an immense respect for people who go into that field of
Well,
theatrical makeup.
this this has been a lot of fun talking to you, and you have a good head on your shoulders, Andrew. And when you make a statement like that, you're absolutely right. About the makeup artist. I mean, it's so much skill and being able to make something look real, or working for a haunted attraction, and to be able to have the skill to make up 10 actors in 2 hours. What is that? That's just a few minutes per actor.
Exactly.
So that, it is amazing skill. So yes, I have had people reach out and say, "Could you teach me how to do this makeup?" Or could you? And it's like, yes, I can teach you. If you're a good student, you'll do it great. So yeah, now that I'm retired, and after 42 years on the road, I very much enjoy. You'll get every once in a while, once a month, it seems like someone is reaching out from somewhere in the U.S. or Canada and saying, "I found you, and would you be willing to, to teach me to do this or do that?" And it's always, yes, but it's going to cost you this amount of money. My dad, who was on the Ed Sullivan Show as a magician in the '60s, my dad always said, if you have a skill, you don't give it away. People appreciate it more when they're paying for it. And I myself have hired people to teach me different things, and I feel good about paying people, because if someone is charging you, to teach you something, well, they're going to do a good job, because you're paying them, and they're going to do a good job because they are being paid by you. So it's a two-way street. I'm happy to teach people, and yet in my life, I've as a young magician and young makeup artist, I paid dozens of people to teach me different stunts and different effects. So yeah, it's just a cool thing. And watching YouTube or reading a book is nice, but the best way to learn anything is to be an apprentice. And even if your apprenticeship is only 2 days, like for Ricky, well, you're still apprenticing under a master, someone who has those skills to teach.
There it is. There it is. Brian, I want to thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you taking the time out your day to come chat with me, sort of recap that whole thing and also talk about your career as well. I'm glad we got to have some conversation about that and dive into things other than, the topic that I contacted you for. It's greatly appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andrew Thompson of the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel, signing off with the man himself, Brian LaPalme, and we are out. Peace.